Emma Carson woke up early on a quiet Sunday morning, hoping for nothing more than a slow, peaceful start to her day. The kitchen was the one place in her Portland home where she felt calm. Morning light fell softly across the counters. The coffee machine hummed, and the gentle smell of cinnamon bread filled the air. It was her small moment of comfort before the world became loud again. She liked her routines. They helped her feel less lonely after the rough year she'd been through. She was spreading butter on warm toast when a sharp knock hit the door. It startled her. No one visited her this early. She wiped her hands on a towel and walked toward the living room, confused and half expecting a package delivery. When she opened the door, she froze. Standing there was her 19-year-old nephew, Logan, with his hands in his pockets and worry written all over his face. "Can we talk?" he asked, voice low, eyes avoiding hers. Emma hadn't seen him in months. Their family had drifted apart after a series of arguments, a misunderstanding that grew too big, too emotional, too fast. The distance between them hurt more than she usually admitted. So seeing him like this, unannounced, quiet, almost anxious, made her heart beat a little faster. She stepped aside. "Come in." Logan walked straight into the kitchen. He still remembered how she always kept it warm. He set a small paper bag on the counter. Emma watched him closely. Even though she tried to stay calm, her breath felt thin. Something about his silence told her this wasn't a casual visit. "What's wrong?" she asked gently. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he pushed the bag toward her. "I found something, and I think it belongs to you." Emma opened the bag and pulled out a photograph. The world seemed to shrink. The moment she saw it was a picture of her and Daniel, the man she had loved deeply years ago. The man she had let go because life became complicated, and the people around them made choices she still regretted. Her fingers tightened around the edges of the photo. She remembered the day it was taken. They were standing near the river, smiling like they believed love alone could hold everything together. She thought she had thrown that picture away during a moment of heartbreak. She didn't want any reminders of what she had lost. Her voice shook slightly. "Where did you get this?" Logan swallowed hard. He looked older than 19 in that moment, tired, uncertain, carrying something heavy. "I didn't just find it. Someone gave it to me." He shifted his weight, rubbing the back of his neck. "Aunt Emma, we need to talk about Daniel." Hearing that name spoken out loud hit her like a sudden breath after holding it in too long. She set the photo down before her hands could tremble more. She thought she had locked that chapter away, buried it, moved on. But the picture on the counter felt like the past walking straight back into her kitchen. Emma took a slow breath. "Logan, why are you bringing this now?" He finally looked her in the eyes, and something soft, almost apologetic, flickered. "There, because last week he came to see me." Emma didn't move, didn't speak, didn't breathe. Logan kept talking, the words spilling out faster now that he had begun. "He told me he tried to message you. He thought you wouldn't answer. He didn't know how else to reach you, so he found me. He said he needed to tell you something important." Emma's stomach tightened. She hadn't heard from Daniel in years. Not once. She had convinced herself he had forgotten her, just like she had tried to forget him. "What did he want?" she whispered. Logan shook his head. "I didn't understand everything, but he looked lost, like he was carrying something he couldn't hold anymore." Emma felt the room grow smaller. The photo, the knock, the unexpected visit, everything was happening too fast, pulling her toward a story she wasn't sure she was ready to read again. Logan stepped closer, voice lower. "He asked me to give you something else, too?" Emma stared at him, heart thudding in her chest, waiting for the next truth that would change everything about this quiet morning in her kitchen. Emma stood still as Logan reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded envelope. It was thin, slightly worn at the edges, like it had been held too long by someone unsure whether to deliver it. He placed it gently on the kitchen counter right beside the photograph. Emma stared at it, her pulse quickening. She didn't need to ask who it was from. The way Logan looked at her said everything. The weight of the past was suddenly so close she could almost feel it breathing against her neck. "A letter," she whispered, even though she already knew. Logan nodded. "He wrote it for you." He didn't trust himself to say everything face to face. Emma's fingers hovered above the envelope but didn't touch it. She wasn't ready. Not yet. Her thoughts were moving too fast, clashing with memories she had tried to bury. She pictured Daniel standing in some quiet room, writing out words he might have rehearsed 100 times. It made her chest feel tight. She had spent years building strong walls around herself, and now one thin envelope was threatening to tear them down. Why didn't he come himself? She finally asked. Logan sighed, leaning against the counter. He said he didn't want to show up without warning. He didn't want to upset you, he thought. After everything, maybe you didn't want to see him. Emma bit her lip. She hated how her heart reacted, how it softened even when her mind told her not to. She had spent long nights convincing herself she was past all of it. The love, the arguments, the painful last goodbye. But hearing that Daniel still cared enough to worry about hurting her made those old feelings rise again, quick and warm, like they'd been waiting beneath the surface. "What did he say to you?" Emma asked. Logan looked down at his hands. "A lot. Honestly, it surprised me. I didn't think he still held on to you like that." Her breath caught. She wasn't sure she wanted to hear more, but part of her needed to. "He told me," Logan continued slowly, "that you two didn't end things the way he wanted. He said he never got the chance to explain some things, that life got messy. Work, family pressure, stuff he didn't handle well. And he said he's been trying to fix himself ever since." Emma closed her eyes for a moment. She remembered the arguments, the distance, the feeling of slipping out of someone's life while pretending she was fine. She had always wondered if she had misread everything, if she had pushed him away, or if he had simply walked in another direction. Hearing Logan describe Daniel's regrets stirred something painful and hopeful all at once. "Why tell you all?" "This," Emma whispered, opening her eyes again. "Because he wants one conversation with you," Logan said. "Just one. He said he doesn't expect anything. He just wants you to know the truth he couldn't say back then." Emma ran a hand through her hair and paced a small circle on the kitchen floor. The morning had started so simply. Now it felt like her heart was being pulled into two directions. One side afraid to reopen old wounds, the other desperate to finally understand what truly happened between them. Logan watched her carefully, his expression softer than she was used to. They hadn't been close recently, but in this moment, he wasn't the distant young man she had argued with months before. He was family again, trying to help in the only way he knew. "Aunt Emma," he said quietly, "I wasn't planning to come today. I wasn't even sure you would open the door for me. But after talking to Daniel, I realized something. Holding on to hurt, it breaks people. And you didn't deserve to carry that alone." Emma's throat tightened. She hadn't expected honesty from Logan, not after everything that had happened between their families. But his words cut through her defenses with surprising kindness. "So, what are you saying?" she asked carefully. "I'm saying maybe. This letter is something you need," he replied. "Not because you still love him, I don't know if you do, but because you deserve answers. You deserve peace." Emma stared at the envelope again. It waited on the counter like a small doorway to the past, one she had tried hard to keep closed. Her hands shook as she picked it up. The paper felt fragile, but the emotions inside felt heavy. Logan stepped back, giving her space. "Whatever you decide, I'm here. I won't push you." Emma paused, taking a slow breath. She knew opening the letter would change things. Maybe a little, maybe a lot. But she also knew this moment wouldn't disappear if she ignored it. The truth had already walked into her kitchen, and it wasn't leaving. She slid her thumb beneath the flap and began to open the envelope. Her heart pounding as fast as the memories rushing back to her. Emma carefully unfolded the letter, her hands trembling as though they already sensed the weight of what was inside. The paper was slightly crumpled, soft with age, and smelled faintly of coffee and ink. She sat at the kitchen table, leaning forward, unable to tear her eyes away. Every word seemed to pull her deeper into a past she had tried to leave behind. Logan stood a few steps away, quiet now, giving her space but still close enough that she could feel his presence. A steady reminder that she wasn't alone in facing this moment. The handwriting was familiar, deliberate, careful, and full of emotion. Emma read the first line slowly, feeling the warmth of the words wrap around her chest. Daniel had always had a way of expressing himself that cut through walls, reaching straight to the heart. Even after all these years, that power hadn't faded. She could almost hear his voice echoing in her mind, soft but insistent, asking her to remember what they once shared. The letter went on, describing the regret he felt for leaving things unresolved. He wrote about the nights he had spent wondering if she had forgiven him, if she had moved on, if she had been happy without him. Emma's throat tightened as tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. It wasn't just words on paper. It was a confession of every unspoken thought, every emotion he hadn't dared to say aloud. She hadn't realized how much she had longed to hear these things, how deeply she had missed his honesty and the way he had always made her feel understood. Logan shifted slightly, and Emma glanced up at him. His expression was a mix of concern and encouragement. He hadn't interrupted her, hadn't tried to guide her reaction. He simply waited, letting her experience the letter on her own. That patience made her feel safe. In a way, Logan had become the bridge between her past and the possibility of a new beginning. She realized she could trust him to handle the delicate moment with care. And that trust gave her courage. As she continued reading, Daniel asked for one chance, just one meeting. No promises, no expectations, only a conversation. He had written the address of a small cafe by the river, a place they had visited together when life was simpler and love felt effortless. Emma's heart raced at the thought. That cafe had been their refuge, their space to laugh, talk, and dream. And now, years later, it was the place where she might finally face the truth she had been avoiding for so long. Her mind raced. What if he had changed? What if she had changed? What if the years apart had made them strangers? She could feel the uncertainty gnawing at her, but she could also feel the pull of hope. There was a quiet magic in the idea of seeing him again, a chance to understand, to heal, to find closure, or maybe even a second chance. Emma realized that she had been holding her heart back for too long, letting fear dictate her choices. The letter made her confront her feelings, forcing her to acknowledge the longing she hadn't admitted to herself. Logan noticed the shift in her. Aunt Emma, he said softly. He really cared about you. He still does. And I think you owe it to yourself to see him. His voice was gentle, but firm enough to push past her hesitation. Emma looked at him, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. She realized that he wasn't just speaking for Daniel. He was reminding her that her own heart mattered, that she deserved clarity, and that love, even after heartbreak, was worth a risk. Emma folded the letter carefully, holding it against her chest for a moment. The kitchen, once quiet and safe, now felt like a threshold, a place where past and present collided. She could feel the tension in her body, the mixture of fear and anticipation, but she also felt a spark of courage, igniting. The words on that paper had reminded her of what she had almost forgotten, that vulnerability could be powerful, that emotions could be a guide rather than a weight, that opening herself to the possibility of connection was not weakness, but strength. Thank you, Logan, she said finally, her voice soft but steady, for bringing this to me, for helping me face this. He nodded, a small smile on his lips, relief in his posture. I'm glad, Aunt Emma. Sometimes we need someone else to remind us what we're capable of and who we can't stop caring about. Emma stood up, feeling the letter in her hand like a key. Her heart beat fast, but this time it wasn't with fear. It was with determination, with hope, with a willingness to confront the past and see where it might lead. The kitchen had become more than a place for morning routines. This was the starting point for a journey she hadn't dared to take before. She knew that stepping outside, going to that cafe, and facing Daniel would change everything. And deep down, she was ready to find out whether the love she had once held so tightly could find its way back to her heart. As she set her coat on the chair, Logan gave her a reassuring look. "You're ready," he said quietly. And in that moment, Emma believed him. The envelope felt heavier in her hands now. But the weight was different. Not a burden, but a promise. A promise that something real and meaningful still waited just beyond the kitchen door. Her fingers lingered on the flap of the envelope as she took a deep breath. Ready to take the step she had avoided for years, unaware of what awaited her. At the Riverbank Cafe, Emma stood in her kitchen, the letter still clutched in her hands. The morning sunlight spilled through the window, casting long shadows across the counters, but she barely noticed. Everything else had disappeared. Her world had narrowed to the words on the paper, the memory of Daniel's voice in her mind, and the quiet presence of Logan nearby. She could hear him breathing softly, waiting without saying a word. Letting her process the storm of emotions that had come rushing back. The kitchen, once her safe and ordinary place, now felt like a threshold to a life she hadn't dared to step into until today. Her fingers smoothed the creases in the envelope as her heart pounded. 1,000 what-ifs raced through her mind. What if he had changed too much? What if she had changed? What if the years had created a distance that no words could bridge? And yet, with every beat, she felt an undeniable pull toward the cafe Daniel had mentioned, a pull that was stronger than her fear. She realized she had spent too long hiding from the possibility of clarity, the possibility of closure, and maybe even the possibility of rekindled feelings. Logan's presence reminded her she didn't have to face this alone. "Aunt Emma," he said quietly, "whatever happens, it's your choice. You're not being pressured." But he's waiting for you, and you deserve to know. His voice was calm, steady, and gentle, a perfect balance to the storm of thoughts racing through her mind. She looked at him, seeing concern, care, and a quiet encouragement she hadn't expected from her nephew. His words made her feel lighter, as though the weight of indecision had been shared and somehow halved. She took a deep breath, folded the letter carefully, and tucked it into her coat pocket. Every step she took felt surreal, as though she were moving through a dream. The familiar streets of Portland seemed different now, brighter, as if the city itself was aware that she was heading toward something important. Her coat felt heavier than usual, not because of the fabric, but because of the significance of what she carried: hope, fear, longing, and the chance to face her past. When she reached the cafe by the river, her hands were slightly clammy, her heart racing faster than it had in years. The sound of water flowing nearby, the faint chatter of people inside, and the smell of fresh coffee created a strange mix of comfort and tension. She paused at the entrance, taking in the small tables, the warm wooden floors, and the familiar window where Daniel had once sat, sketching in his notebook. Everything was the same, yet nothing felt the same. Time had passed, and they had both changed, but the memory of their past connection lingered in the air like a soft echo. Emma pushed the door open and stepped inside. Her eyes scanned the cafe, searching for him. Then she saw him, Daniel, standing near the window, hands in his pockets, shoulders slightly hunched, yet unmistakably him. Their eyes met, and for a moment neither moved. Years of unspoken words, unshared moments, and unresolved emotions hung between them. And then he took a cautious step toward her, as if testing the waters, as if afraid to disturb the fragile hope he saw in her eyes. "Emma," he said softly, his voice carrying the same warmth she remembered. There was no hesitation, only sincerity and the weight of everything they had once shared. Her lips curved into a small, hesitant smile, the kind that mixes relief with nervous excitement. "I wasn't sure you'd come." She shook her head, feeling the tension in her chest ease just slightly. "I had to," she said. "I needed to understand. I needed." "Answers?" He nodded, his gaze steady, never leaving hers. "And you will. Whatever you need to know, I'll tell you. I owe you that much." His words were simple, yet they carried years of remorse, longing, and care. They sat at the small table by the window. Conversation flowed more easily than she expected. Laughter emerged where tension had once lived. Memories resurfaced, and explanations were shared without blame. The past didn't disappear, but the clarity they sought began to form between them like sunlight breaking through clouds. Each word, each gesture, and each shared glance was a reminder of what had been lost and what might be found again. As the hours passed, Emma realized the kitchen that morning, quiet, safe, ordinary, had been the beginning of something far bigger. Logan's thoughtful presence, the letter, the photograph, all had guided her here, to a moment where she could confront her feelings and embrace whatever the future held. When she finally stepped outside, the river sparkling under the late morning sun, she felt lighter, freer. The past was still a part of her, but it no longer held her hostage. She had taken a step she had feared for so long, and in doing so, had opened the door to healing, understanding, and perhaps even love reborn. Emma smiled, her heart steady, knowing this was only the beginning of a new chapter, one she was ready to write with courage, hope, and an open heart.